Spokeshaves are much like any other plane in that any tool is really designed to take a shaving. It's the size and shape of the tool that dictate how it gets there. These are intended for more edge work and working in curves, whether it's concave or convex, because it's got a very small bearing surface on the tool. Setting up is just like anything else. I'll usually do a little bit of sighting to find an edge, but with these, I find it's actually a little easier to just work off of a flat surface. If I reference off of my flat workpiece and then draw back, I've got just enough tension on these thumb screws that it'll hold a position. But I'm pulling back, and when I feel a little bit of resistance, it's not cutting, I tighten those down. Tightening down will just drive that blade down for a cut. I should be getting an even shaving on both sides. I'm taking a little more on one side than the other. I can make a subtle adjustment by tapping. If it's giving me the cut that I want, then I'm ready to work. One thing that some people will do is actually intentionally set one side heavier. So then when you're working on a piece, if it's a narrow edge, you'll get a heavy roughing cut on one side and it transitions through to a finishing cut on the other side of the blade. When you have a curved bottom, it's a little bit different because you want to be careful that you're not referencing off the full open mouth. You want to reference off the front side of the mouth to get the actual depth of cut. So just same setup procedure, but rock the tool forward so it engages off the front of the mouth opening. Again, just dragging when you feel that little bit of catch, tighten down the screw, and you should be getting the cut that you want. Again, I'm a little heavier on the off side here than in this. So if I want that cut, I can leave it that way or make just a subtle adjustment. If I need it to be cutting a little heavier altogether, I'd just tap right in the middle of the blade. Setting the concave spokeshave is just a little different in that it's hard to get a consistent reference point there. So I'll actually tend to sight that a little more, get it to where the corners are just starting to disappear for me. And then if I have a little dowel, I can do a test cut. And I'm just looking for that even thickness. Again, if I want to go a little heavier, I can tap right in the middle. This one, you typically want to have both sides set to the same depth on the corner. Now, sharpening of these is a little bit tricky because they're not going to fit well into a honing guide. I tend to do these freehand. We've got two different types of blades here. This is a straight blade, which is going to be in the flat or curved bottom, and then I've got the concave blade. There's a pretty radical shape there. It's got a radius that you want to match as closely as you can when you're sharpening. When I'm doing the flat blade, I tend to do the whole bevel because when this is in the tool, it's presenting down, and if you're not careful, you can close off the relief between the heel of the bevel and the workpiece underneath when it goes into the tool. So I prefer to do the whole bevel on this blade. Because it's relatively small, it doesn't take a lot to do. And I'm working on a 1000 grit stone first to get a burr on the back of the blade. I'm going to feel the point where it just balances onto the stone, where it engages that whole bevel. And then working with a side motion, rather than straight ahead, I have a lot more control. I've got a broader surface that's working off the stone. So if I just find that point where it balances on, and I'm referencing with my finger onto the piece, I work across the stone, trying to use as much of it as I can. And I'll even change direction on the stone so that I'm wearing it evenly. And as soon as I can feel a burr on the back of the blade, I'm going to switch over to the other stone, my 8,000 grit. I like to ease off the burr a little bit and just go same cutting action, find that registration point, and work the blade. If I could get this into a honing guide easily, I'd much rather do it that way because I know I can do a secondary bevel then and speed up the process. But without an appropriate jig, this is going to be the fastest, easiest way to do it. I'll still use David Charlesworth's ruler trick on the back of the blade so that I don't have to spend as much time working the back side. That then gives me an edge that's ready to go. Now the slight difference with the concave is I'm not going to be working on my stones. If I had a slip stone, I could use that, and you can take an old stone that might have been damaged or been worn out, and you can create a shape on that that matches here. What I've done in this case is with the blade in the tool, I cut the profile onto a piece of wood. I then lay a piece of sandpaper, and I'll start at a relatively coarse paper, maybe 220 or 180, and finish out at 400. You may even find some papers that are measured in micron. And then you can go to a 1 micron or even a half micron for a final hone and a final polish. And you get the same type of finish that you get off of a Waterstone. But the cutting action here is simply run across, matching that radius as closely as you can. Again, I'm just looking for a burr on the back of the blade. Once I get that, I can use my stone for the back side of the blade to get rid of the burr. But I'll go back to a finer grit paper for the final polish. That gives me a nice matching angle.